With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
When we started writing our thoughts down on paper, it opened up endless possibilities. Ideas could grow beyond the borders of the mind, and it changed the world. Somewhere along the way, we lost touch with paper, distracted by devices made for every purpose except for thinking and focus. On edge, waiting for the next notification. But what if new technology didn't pull us away from paper, but brought us closer to it? Listen. That's not paper. It's the sound of the new Remarkable Paper Pro, rewriting the future. A paper tablet with a true color ink display, gentle reading light, and unheard of tactility. With digital features for taking notes, thinking, and organizing, without any distractions. Paper is about to change the world again. Get your paper tablet at remarkable.com today.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer actually coming to you from Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city, and damn glad to do it on this Tuesday. Got Jacob Beck and Jordan Kitchens back there on the ones and twos. It was a long time away. It was a lot of fun. It was very successful and fruitful, but glad to be home. Glad to be back here. Glad to be hanging out for the next 2 hours. We'll have Glen West coming up in 30 minutes. At the top of hour number 2 at 2 o'clock, Sonny Schiff's going to jump on to talk a little recruiting. Big weekend for LSU over the weekend that I paid absolutely no attention to. Not even a little bit. None. Somebody told me Bo Bentley committed somewhere else. Didn't even know it. Didn't know it happened. I'm across the country. I got a College World Series to win. Football recruiting not on the brain, but it's always on Sonny's brain, and he's going to tell us about it in an hour. And then we'll talk some Saints with Sharif Ishak of WDSU in hour number 2 at the bottom of that hour. So fired up to here with us. Beck, what do we think about the 2 weeks away and my technical skills to get the broadcast on the air? However many times we did that, I guess I can count. Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday. Nine shows. How'd I do?
Well, for what I was expecting, I would probably give you a minus or a B plus, honestly.
What dropped it to a B plus?
Well, I'm in between B plus or A minus. Somewhere I would probably go A minus. I think my final decision would be A minus because you never had a very serious issue. The only issues you really ever had was a few times where you literally couldn't hear me or the commercials or anything.
That happened twice because there was a cord that has to be plugged into the back that was just hanging off the back that just wasn't plugged in.
Yes, so
that was a great conversation with Bo where our engineer who I put the FaceTime up, and he said, you see that cord hanging off? Plug it in. Bo doesn't have a lot of tolerance for the idiot radio personalities that can't plug things in properly.
Yes, but overall, besides that was really the only mistakes that were made. So it was a good performance by you.
How about leaving the carry-on with all of the equipment unattended and lost in the St. Louis airport this morning?
Well,
was that good?
That's not good. However, you did find it. So honestly, the only way anyone would have ever known is just by you telling the story. It is a great story, but at the same time,
I was so relieved when I found it. I got my flight was at 5:25 this morning out of Omaha. Got to the airport at 4:15. Flew to St. Louis and landed there at 6 and had an 8:15 connection. And I was trying to write a story and I got it done and I got a Powerade, and I, over the course of that, just left the significantly expensive radio equipment unattended. And someone found it and gave it to the gate attendant. I just didn't know which gate attendant may have had it. So I was on the plane, ran off the plane, down the up the tarmac thing, or is that what it's called?
No, that's the tarmac. Is like the actual ground.
The actual ground.
That's like the gate.
Like
the gate
jetway,
gate connection.
Whatever.
I
ran back up that. I was running throughout the terminal with the backpack on, pouring sweat. 8 a.m. It was a bad scene, but I did find it, and it's now back.
Yes.
And right when I walked in, I saw Bo, and I just handed him the box. Like, I've had this for 2 weeks. I cannot have it anymore. And it's safe. It is safe there. So that's a good thing. So, yeah, awesome 12, 13 days, 12 nights in Omaha, and fired up to be back. And never been more, as I tweeted last night, never been more excited. Go pick my kiddo up and take him to swim lessons. That was a long 12 days away. But glad to be back here, and let's get things started the way we do every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
So what do we do when one season ends? We just go start looking at the next one, right? And I did that for LouisianaSports.net yesterday, wrote a story just kind of detailing what's going to go on here in the next 6 weeks. And that is the transfer portal, but most importantly, that I can project the roster from the 2025 national champions. What part of that is coming back next year? And I want to probably break this into 2 segments. It's probably going to take a little bit, but I'll start with the position player group. Luis Hernandez is out of eligibility. He's gone. That's your catcher. Jared Jones is at first base. He's a junior. He will go to the draft. He's gone. Daniel Dickinson played second. He's got options. I think he came here to compete for a championship, to play in Omaha, to prove himself against the SEC, and then to go play professional baseball. He could certainly come back and lose all that leverage. It wouldn't stun me. I think he's going to move on to professional baseball. Michael Braswell's out of eligibility. He's gone. So the only person on the infield dirt from a position player perspective that you are getting back is Stephen Milam, your shortstop. In my opinion, I don't think Dickinson's back. You go to the outfield, and Josh Pearson is out of eligibility, so he will move on. And the 2 guys that have a decision to make about what their futures hold are Ethan Fry and Chris Stanfield. Both of those guys have the opportunity to play more college baseball. Fry is more draftable than Stanfield. Stanfield is a very good college center fielder, but he doesn't have any pop in his bat, really, is mostly a pull hitter, and he's just a college player. And I think he would be a great college player to have back on LSU's team next year. But if he'd like to sign for a little bit more money, if we think he would get drafted well after the 10th round and is just ready to win his national championship and move on and see what he can do in professional baseball, he has that option. I haven't spoke like these guys over there in that program right now are doing a lot more celebrating and rejoicing over what they accomplished than talking to me about what players do and what in the draft. I don't think those decisions have earnestly been considered. To this point, they will be probably after Wednesday's celebration. You kind of think about what's next for you. Ethan Fry does not have a defensive spot. And if Stanfield comes back, then you have Derek Curiel, Chris Stanfield, and Jake Brown all in your outfield as returning starters. And I don't know how much outfield time there is for Ethan Fry. I don't know if he can play first base. I've seen him do it a little bit, and this was like a year ago, and it wasn't great, but there's a vacancy there if he wants to try his hand at first base. Maybe Jake Brown plays first base as well. I wouldn't like that, but it's a possibility. So Fry just has to consider, like, okay, you're not going to create a lot more value for yourself if you go play left field because Stanfield leaves and Curiel goes over and plays center and you're the left fielder. Like, playing left field doesn't prove anything to major league teams that's going to make a significant move in your draft spot. And certainly first base isn't either. And you look at his leverage, like if he doesn't play, I'm not sure how he's not going to get a redshirt year from last year with the injury. He played too much. So he's one that you're just going to have to see. Those are the question marks with your position player group. It's Dickinson a little bit, and then it's big time Stanfield and Fry, what those guys decide ultimately they want to do. That is the core of your team next year. Right now, and I realize the transfer portal's open and things can happen all the time, but right now the core of your team moving into 2026 is Stephen Milam, Derek Curiel, Jake Brown, and then hopefully Ethan Fry, Chris Stanfield, Daniel Dickinson. But those decisions have to be made. That is what you're looking for as far as this team goes. We'll see. They've already added 2 transfer portal players that are good infield bats, third base, first base, probably maybe second base. I think Dardar probably plays second base if I had to guess. But we'll see what the draft does to the signing class and what of those guys may make an impact. I'm not ready to do that segment today. That's more of a June segment to do. But right now, offensively, it looks really good as far as what you're bringing back to this roster. And I think that they need to potentially add a little bit of power. That's it's an interesting thing because you saw him go up there and hit 2 homers and win the national championship. I'm not as concerned with the power in Omaha because you just have to hit low line drives there. You've got to hit the ball on the ground through holes and into the corners and into the gaps. But to win in the SEC, it's really hard to do without some pop. Like, it's just really hard to win those 30 SEC games without home runs. If you go to Knoxville or you go to Kentucky or you go to Oxford, even Duty Noble, some of these offensive ballparks, and you don't have guys that want to hit it over the fence and you're playing teams that are built to hit it over the fence, it just creates some issues. And this team, to its credit, did find enough power beyond Jones. Like Dickinson crept up to like 13 home runs, and Brown hit with some pop when he was out there, and you got double-digit home runs from Milan, you got 9 homers from Hernandez, and you found some power. Fry he broke out really this year and found a little bit of a power stroke, and none of those guys hit homers in Omaha. It didn't matter. LSU didn't lose a game when they were up there. But the season's broken up into 2 different components. One is make sure you play at home, and the other is make sure you win in Omaha. And I did this segment back on the first Friday I was there. I talked to Dave Van Horn and Jay Johnson about building their roster, knowing that you're competing for a national championship in your mind. Like, you know where that national championship is going to be held. Do you have to mold your roster to that? And they both said you would be short-sighted to try to build a team to win in this ballpark because you have to play 56 games plus a conference tournament just to qualify to get into the tournament to play in this place. So I don't know what kind of profile and what kind of power you can expect if John Pearson plays a little bit. I don't know how well Seth Dardar's power translates over from the Big 12 to the SEC. He homered off Kate Anderson, which is a pretty big feather in your cap. And then I don't know what Chris Stanfield decides to do. And if you put Ethan Fry back in the outfield and Curriel grows up a little bit and turns that 5, 6, 7 home runs into 12, 13 home runs, which we all think could very well happen. Like, you start to find some pop that you're looking for. And I think Stephen Milan's going to have a better offensive year next year than he did this past year. That's going to be one that we look back and go, what happened for those 50 games? Because it was great as a freshman, and it was great in Omaha as a sophomore year, and I think it's going to be great next year. Like, what happened during a sophomore regular season? And so maybe if he hits the ball a little bit better next year, that home run number crops up a little bit. But I think LSU is in good shape from a position player standpoint. It's going to be another team that I think lacks a little bit as far as the star power aspect goes. Curriel and Milam are great college players. Curriel's probably going to have to hit more home runs to be a superstar. Like, hitting 340 with 6 home runs is awesome as a freshman. Incredible. I am not disparaging that at all, one bit. But like, the superstars hit 18 homers. Like, that's what Vahiva Aloy and Jared Jones and Dylan Cruz and Tommy White and the great players in the league, Jack Caglione and Jay Slavulette, and it's a power hitter's game. Now, if you hit 418, we'll talk about it. But the star power may not be what the Cruz White Skeens team was again, but it didn't have to be because it wasn't this year either. But I like the backbone and the core of the offense moving into next year. Just got to continue to supplement that out of the transfer portal and see what the high school class can add to you. Because if you continue to add freshmen like Milam and Curriel to your roster, and like Trey Morgan and Cruz were great freshmen, as you all well know. Like, if you get one of those, and I can't tell you who that is today because I don't know what the draft's going to do, but if you can get one of those, then you add that to the mix. And I think that Jay Johnson feels really good about his team. If you listened to Jay Johnson when the portal was brought up to him after the regional, because guys were going in the portal after the regional. He was like, we're going to be very selective. And to me, that answer saying we're going to be very selective indicates he feels pretty good about where they are from a roster standpoint, and they're just going to cherry pick the 4 or 5 guys they want, and it's not going to be some 13-player ad like some teams will do just about annually. So that's a look at the offense. I want to do the same thing with the pitching staff when we come back. Then we'll chat with Glen West in 15 minutes. The Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Look, the staff there at Genesis is just incredible. It's always a treat for me to go over there and chat with them. You may have had a bad experience in the past at some car dealership, and it scarred you, and you're like, I'm not going back to deal with that. It's just so unpleasant. I'll just sit at the comfort of my home and push buttons. I'm not going to talk to anybody. And I get that. And you are certainly welcome to go check out the inventory online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. But I highly recommend you go talk to their staff. Their brand ambassadors are phenomenal. They're going to treat you like a guest and not a customer. And they're going to make sure that all your questions are answered, all your needs are considered, and that the price makes sense for you. And that's what they're going to do at Genesis of Baton Rouge. It's a luxury brand. It's a luxury experience at a reasonable price. That's what they promise you. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Go by and see them. Airline at PQ. GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Went around the LSU lineup there in the first segment for our Genesis opening drive. A couple names that I did not mention in that segment that I want to make sure that y'all are aware of there. I mean, Cade Arambidi is projected to be the catcher on the team next year, and I think has a chance to be a star. Now, the development has to come. And if you got to see a jump like you saw from Jake Brown this past year, where he was a talented dude as a freshman, but he didn't hit for a very high average against the SEC, and he didn't do a ton. You could just see the tools. And he put that together this year and really had a nice year, mainly hitting against right-handed pitching. Arambidi's got all the tools you could possibly want at catcher. And if you can put that together, he could be a really, really good player. And I didn't mention Ashton Larson either, and that's just going to be an interesting deal. I think Ashton was an incredible teammate this year. I don't see a lot of outfield spots opening up. I mean, Curiel's Curiel, and Brown is Brown, and like Stanfield may be back. And if that's the case, and especially if Fry's back too, like I just don't know where the outfield at bats come from for Ashton. I don't know if he can play first base. Maybe they send him off to summer ball and do that if he wants to stay. Like I'm certainly not trying to run Ashton Larson out of town. I'm just analyzing the roster, and I'm looking at a bunch of guys that he didn't beat out this past year, and I'm going, well, is he going to beat him out this next year? It's going to be interesting. So we'll see what Ashton Larson's future is as well. But he could be back. As far as the pitching staff goes, you are going to have to replace a lot. But I will remind you that LSU, entering this season, had to replace 29 of its 30 SEC starts and almost all of its SEC innings from last year's staff. That was Holman and Jump and Herring and Ackenhausen and Little and all those guys. You had to completely overhaul the pitching staff, and LSU was incredible on the mound this year. So if you look at who's going to be moving on from the pitching staff, Cade Anderson is going to be a top 5 pick. Anthony Ianson is going to move on to pro baseball. Chase Shores is going to move on to pro baseball. Jacob Myers is going to move on to pro baseball. Those guys are very, very draftable and will sign for large bonuses. Cade's might be like $10 million. Somebody like Shores or Myers closer to 400, 500, 600,000, 700, 800,000, depending on what team falls in love with them, where the slot is, and how much money they have to spend. But those guys are going to sign pretty lucrative contracts. You look at the decisions that have to be made on the pitching staff. That's guys like Zach Cowan, who could come back and maybe be a starter in the SEC. He would lose his leverage. I don't think he's going to be a massively draftable prospect anyway. So we'll see if Zach Cowan decides to come back. He had a great year. His ERA was under 3 for the year. He had 4 bad outings, and they looked bad. Like, it was bad to lose that game at South Carolina. It was bad to be so bad in that game against Little Rock. But he was really good for most of the year. And I think most LSU fans, and certainly that coaching staff I know, would welcome him back if he wanted to come back. Jaden Newt is draft eligible. He missed a year, so he's only a sophomore. He doesn't lose his leverage if he moves on, but he is draftable, and he'll have to make a decision. Gavin Guidry said to a camera on the field in Omaha, like, let's run it back. So I have no reason to believe he's going to move on coming off of an injury, but he can. He's been at LSU now for 3 years. Grant Fontenot hasn't really caught on anywhere, so that's a guy who has a decision to make. And then Connor Ware is another one who I think he's probably going to sign a pro deal and just get on with it, but he could come back. He's got another year of college eligibility, and he's a guy that would lose some leverage there. I'm not sure what the future holds. If you made me guess, I would guess Grant Fontenot is not back with LSU. I would guess Connor Ware is not back with LSU. I would guess Cowan, Newt, and Guidry all do return for LSU. And then you got guys that you project that are certainly back who aren't even draft eligible. That's Kason Evans, who right now profiles as your Friday night guy. That's Cooper Williams, who was awesome this year. You've got Maverick Rizzi, who showed so much upside. Like, isn't it easy to project Maverick Rizzi in that Chase Shores role at the end of the season for next year, where he comes in and just lets it fly at 98, 99 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour? And we've seen Rizzi's got a good slider as well. When Rizzi was on, he was awesome. He just threw too many balls. But you look at Evans, Williams, Rizzi, and then, of course, your other freshman, William Schmidt, who this is a monster summer for William Schmidt. Just, there's no two ways about it. He has got to go, I'm assuming, to Cape Cod and throw strikes. And then he's got to come back in the fall and throw strikes, because I think William Schmidt is going to be a star. I think that the ability is so good. And the same way that I'm going to pump brakes and pump brakes and pump brakes all late summer when everybody says, well, Burrow in year 5 did that at LSU, and then Daniels in year 5 did that at LSU. Here's Nussmeier, number 5. Go get him. I'm not going to do that immediately. And I'm not going to look at Cade Anderson's freshman year and look at William Schmidt's freshman year and go, hey, go do that. That's hard to do. But there are parallels. Anderson was a Louisiana kid with big-time talent who turned down draft money, who was dominant at times in the midweek, and then went up against SEC opponents and didn't do very well. And then he went off to the Cape, and he came back with Nate Yeske, and they worked on a slider, and he was great in the fall, and he was clearly LSU's number 1 on opening day and never relinquished it, and he was the best pitcher in the country. What you've got to see from William Schmidt is find mechanics up, throw more strikes, keep spinning that breaking ball, and he'll be a very, very, very effective college pitcher, but he's got to make those strides. Devin Sheeran is already on Cape Cod. He tore his ACL back in the end of the summer last year. Didn't pitch this year. He's looking really good on Cape Cod, so I love that. And you got DJ Primo, who you project back with the team as well. So that's Kason Evans, Cooper Williams, Maverick Rizzi, William Schmidt, Devin Sheeran, DJ Primo. That's 6 guys. And then you look at the guys that you think you'll get back with Cowan, Newt, Guidry. That you're talking about 9 guys to start with there before you ever add a transfer portal arm, which they're looking into, or you get anybody from the signing class, which we'll talk about at a later date. But like you have a strong foundation from a pitching perspective, a position player perspective. Beg your pardon, that's a tongue twister. From a pitching perspective, the talent is immense, but everybody's going to have to bump up a notch in role. Like Evans is going to have to go from an elite stopper who LSU very much trusted in big spots like they did in the regional where he was sensational and in the UCLA restart where he was sensational. Now you got to be the Friday guy. And like Cooper Williams, William Schmidt, like you guys got your feet wet a little bit. Cooper Williams, lefty bullpen specialist. Schmidt starting in the midweek. Like, okay, need you big time on SEC weekends. Cowan, closer, might need you to be the Sunday starter. Like Newt, your midweek arm, I need you to be a force in the back of the bullpen or a weekend starter. But you realize how much talent that you've got in that, and that there's more coming via the portal and the high school class. Like I feel really good about LSU's pitching. And I will say this, part of it is because you overhauled everything last year and it went so well. And Jay said this after the game ended on Sunday afternoon. He's like, if you're a pitcher and you don't want to come here, like you're out to lunch, is what he said. Like you're clearly not thinking clearly if you don't want to come here and pitch. And that's because LSU's got so many resources, and they've got that pitching lab, and they've got Jamie Tutko on the analytics, and they've got Nate Yeske on the fundamentals and the communication and all that goes into pitch calling. And the formula they've got is creating massive development in transfers and young arms. The improvement that Anthony Ianson made, the improvement that Cade Anderson made, the improvement that Chase Shores made, and that Cooper Williams made, the improvement that Jaden Newt made. Like, these guys have made significant leaps since they've been here, and they've got to continue to do that. And I think if I sat here today and suggested that's not going to happen next year, that would just be completely disingenuous. Like, they're going to do awesome. They're going to take these talented arms and make a great pitching staff. And that, I wrote a column about like the resurrection of LSU from a pitching perspective from the time Jay Johnson got to LSU to now. When Jay Johnson got to LSU, it was Mikhail Hilliard on Fridays, a mediocre Ty Floyd on Saturdays. Pray you could get the ball to Eric Reiselman and Paul Gervais, who he found from heavens knows where, and try to get through a weekend. And they got to a regional doing that, and they almost won it. And then you got Skeens, and you developed Floyd, and you brought in Riley Cooper, and you developed Ackenhausen, and then you brought in Thatcher Hurd and Gage Jump and Luke Holman, and you just the amount of talent just elevated immensely in like 18 months' time. And now you're just kind of running the assembly line through. And guys are going to move off the assembly line like Cade Anderson, Anthony Niansen, and Chase Shores and Jacob Myers, and you just got to roll the next group on. And this is that group. So I understand after doing the exercise, and for those that missed this on LouisianaSports.net, if you like to read it in print form, just kind of get your arms around it as opposed to me talking to you, I've got a big story on LouisianaSports.net right now. It's like how the roster looks right now moving into next year. But there's a reason why Jay Johnson said a couple weeks ago, like, we're going to be real selective. And there's a reason why, to this point, they've only added 2 transfer portal options. They got Seth Dardar, who I mentioned, from Kansas State, and then High Point third baseman Braden Simpson, if they can get him through the draft. And that's really all they've done to this point. Now they're on starting pitcher from Rutgers that they'd like to add, and we'll get into that as things happen. But I more so wanted to focus on what's actually currently on the roster. And it wouldn't shock me at all today if 3 guys went in the transfer portal from LSU. Maybe a better time to do that would be Thursday after the national championship celebration. But you understand, like, you've already had a lot of guys that didn't make the travel roster, postseason roster, the Mick Pauls and the Mikey Ryans and the Daniel Hoggs, and like those guys are already in. And maybe there will be more, maybe not. But this is what the roster looks like right now, and it's in a really good spot. They've just got to supplement it like they do every single year. And as long as Jay Johnson is the coach at LSU, they're going to supplement it, and they're going to be really good. That was my biggest takeaway from this national championship, is like, now the train is really on the tracks and it's chugging. And this is the result of that. This group that looks going to be really talented in the fall, and then should be able to try to make a run at this thing again next year. And that'll be the case every year as Jay Johnson is here running things at the powerhouse of college baseball. I'll tell you this. I pulled into Baton Rouge, dropped off my luggage at the house, said hey to the cat, then booked it down Nicholson to work, do the show. And I passed the box, and there was a crane already out at the Intimidator. If you look at my Twitter feed, I've got a picture of it. It's not a very good picture, but it is a picture nonetheless. They're already putting the new one on for Wednesday. Now, we know that they put one on for Wednesday that just highlights this year's, and then for opening day next year, they'll have one up that has all 8 on it, and that's a very, very cool thing. Make some more room on that Intimidator. I think we may use it here in the not-too-distant future. All right, let's take a timeout. When we come back, Glen West of Go 24/7. We've got a lot of Go 24/7 coming at you here in the next 45 minutes. We'll have Glen West now, and then Sonny Ship at the top of the hour talking some recruiting, but we'll stick with baseball next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
I hope your work week's off to a good start. Feeling confident that it is. I was getting the sense driving into Baton Rouge today. I don't know what made it crystallize from it. It's like it really felt like summer when I was driving in. I think I was
because there wasn't as much traffic.
It may have been. But it was 10 o'clock. Like well, it was like 11 o'clock actually. So it's just not going to be a very trafficy time. But it's just like the summer vibes were very much out there. And I think I was just so knee deep in baseball the last 4 weeks that I didn't take time to realize that. But it's summer, so maybe you're not a work week. Maybe it's vacation time for you. Glen West, 24/7, Go 24/7, good enough to give us some time on Tuesdays, joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Glenn, how are you?
I'm doing great, Hunt. Is the Coke Zero carrying you through today?
Yeah, I got one here. I mean, at this point, it's just pure adrenaline. Like that was 3 hours of sleep last night. That wasn't very good sleep, and I've already been on 2 airplanes today. So yeah, we're gonna make it through one way or another. I think it's more than the Coke Zero. It's probably just the baseball team winning the national championship, which was quite fun to watch and enjoy. You were with them every step of the way. I'll leave it very open ended. Like, what's this team's legacy for you?
Yeah, I think, look, I'll steal Jay Johnson's quote here about toughness and together. I think that is very applicable to this team in terms of just how, maybe this wasn't the most talented national championship team LSU's had. I mean, they have, don't get me wrong, they have MLB talent all up and down the roster, but this group really had to come together in a very short amount of time. There was a lot of turnover with this roster, with only 12 players returning from last year. And just, I think the way that they moved their way through Omaha was just really incredible. I mean, to go 5-0, you really relied heavily on that 1-2 punch of Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson, but Chase Shores gave you some big moments. Zach Cowan gave you some big moments. Comes to find out, in the very final presser in Omaha, Jay Johnson tells the media that Daniel Dickinson has been playing with a broken hand for the last 3-4 weeks. I mean, it's just, Michael Braswell, with all the struggles he had at the plate, didn't let it affect his defense. This was as together of a group that I think that I've seen since I've been covering the team back in 2017. And I think that really showed its colors in this postseason run. And it's going to be a very special one to remember. And I think Jay Johnson said it best. I can't remember what interview he was doing, but he wants to build future LSU teams like the way this one was built, in terms of just the character, the mindset, the toughness, the focus. This team never seemed out of the game. They never seemed out of control at any point during this postseason run. And that's just a true testament to just how together and close this group was, and the clutchness and the clutch gene that I think showed throughout the entirety of the postseason as well.
I'm with you for all that. I think I'm lockstep there. And then the caveat to it is they also might have had the number one pick at the top of their rotation, which I don't think any of us suggested in January, but here we are. I mean, what do you make of Cade Anderson's 18 starts?
Yeah, look, he's going to go down as one of the all-time greats here. And, this is a Louisiana kid that grew up watching this team over the years and just had a really great story to him. Had an up-and-down freshman season, came together, I think, towards the end of that freshman year for him, where he put together some really strong outings, and you could kind of see maybe the improvement coming. But I'd be lying to you if I said I thought this was going to be kind of the end result of his second season here. I mean, I thought he'd be great for LSU this year. I think after the very first game, I said, well, there's your ace. And some people hopped on me for it a little bit, saying, well, let's give it a little bit more time. But he has just a mental toughness to him on the mound that nothing rattles him. He gives up some home runs every once in a while, but he's so effective with all four of his pitches, and they're so deceptive and so consistently hitting the corners, hitting the right spots of the strike zone that this really has hitters guessing. And I think he's going to be a fantastic major league pitcher at the next level. And I think it's a great selling point here for Jay Johnson and for Nate Yeskie, all these guys that they've had over the years, whether it's Skeens or Ty Floyd and Gage Jump, Luke Holman, and then this year with Anderson and Ianson. They have proven that they can develop pitching talent at an elite level here, and I would imagine that continues to happen over the course of the next however long they're together.
Do you have any sound logic as to why Stephen Milam did not play very well for 56 games of this year, and then the rest of his time at LSU so far, the other year and a half, has just been brilliant?
I don't. I mean, look, we say he wasn't playing well, but I will say defensively he was elite the entirety of the year. His bat was just, I think, a combination of, because he didn't strike out a ton. I think he was getting under balls. He was not hitting it in the right spots with the bat. There's probably some inner workings here you can dissect as you go through his season looking back on it. But I think that this is a guy that's postseason made. I mean, he is just a very tough kid coming from New Mexico, just a really I think a common theme with this team is that nothing really fazed them throughout the entirety of the year. And I think another example of that is Stephen Milam, when it gets to postseason play, is arguably your MVP of the entire postseason after maybe having some struggles in SEC play at the plate. I mean, he was elite defensively throughout the entirety of the year, but he came through with some of the biggest swings that LSU had to have in the postseason, and he just seemed like he was always on base. I think he batted around 400. I'm sure his on-base percentage was well north of 400 in the postseason, and I think that just goes to show you, like, it doesn't matter what you've done in the previous 56. It's all about the present, all about the game in front of you. That's been the kind of the mantra of this group since Jay Johnson took over in 2021. They always look forward. They don't look in the past, and Stephen Milam is a great example of that, and a big reason why LSU was able to get over the hump here in the NCAA tournament.
He will be back, assuming he doesn't look elsewhere to play college baseball, but he's not going to the MLB draft. I'm curious what your thoughts are on some of the guys with draft options. I'll kind of go through them. It's Cowan, it's Stanfield, it's Fry. Those are kind of the three that I'm looking at specifically. What does your gut tell you about those three guys and whether or not they'll be back?
Yeah, my gut feeling is, if LSU can get two of those three back, I think that would be really good, because then that also solves kind of that other outfield position there with, potentially one of those guys like Chris Stanfield potentially leaving. But if they're able to convince Stanfield or Fry to come back, I think that's a huge win. Cowan, I think, is going to be maybe a little easier to make that case. I mean, he can come back and be a starter for LSU next year and probably get a nice NIL package to be a part of this group next season. And he was elite for LSU out of the bullpen, but he's a starter. He's a guy that can start games, and I think that'll be something. I'm sure these are conversations that Jay Johnson is already having with these players, and if they can get one of Stanfield and Fry back, I think that's a huge win for this team, because whether it's Stanfield, you slot him right back into center field, or if it's Fry, you can put him in a corner outfield spot like Curiel is center. And that's your 1-2-3 punch there with Jake Brown. The other guy that I'm curious on, and I know this is not a direct draft question, but what happens with Ashton Larson?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he's still a very good player. He just got, look, there were some really good hitters on this team. Stanfield was obviously an elite defensive player and came through with some clutch hits. But I think if you lose Stanfield and you lose Fry, but you're able to convince Larson to come back and run it back with this group, I think you're still in a really good spot in the outfield with those three as your kind of starters going into next year as well. So really those core four, I think, are guys that I'm all looking at. And if you can get two, maybe three of them back, you're really sitting pretty if you're LSU.
Any of those guys can play first base, do you think?
I would maybe lean Fry if there's going to be any of those guys that could play first. I think John Pearson's a guy that certainly you could see, getting some work over at first. He had some opportunities at first and third, I think, in the fall and in the spring. So maybe that's an option that they can have at first. Eddie Yaman is another guy that has some catcher/first base experience that they are hoping to get back, and I think will be back. But yeah, I think maybe Fry could play. Maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but I believe Jake Brown even played an inning or two some point in the season at first base. So maybe that's an option. I think Jake Brown's perfect in where he is. I don't think you want to move him at all, but there's definitely some maneuvering that I think you can kind of lean into depending on who you do and don't get back this offseason.
What do you think the future holds for Jay Johnson at LSU?
Look, I think like a lot of the writers that cover the beat or even the national guys, wrote pretty much a variation of the same piece. I think this is a dynasty in weight. Like, I think one, it's like, okay, this is a really good coach. This is a guy who knows how to develop and recruit at an elite level. But to do it just 2 years later, too, is massively impressive, especially considering the turnover that LSU's had as a program with all the players that they've lost over the last couple seasons to the draft. To be able to rebuild this team, retool it, find that that niche, that puncturing point that gets them into a championship contending group. He's the best at it right now. I know that there are several great coaches out there that are doing it at a very high level. I would imagine Jay Johnson is going to get a nice deserved raise for what he's been able to build and do over the last couple of years. And I think, if they've got 2, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they don't slow down and they're right back in the thick of things next year and are a program to be reckoned with for however long he's in Baton Rouge.
We missed you in Omaha. Maybe we'll see you there next summer, Glenn, all right?
All right. Thanks, man.
He's Glen West. Go 24/7, covering the Tigers, baseball, basketball, football, and, of course, recruiting. They got you covered over at Go 24/7. And my guy, Sonny Ship, over at Go 24/7 as well. He'll be there coming up. He'll be here coming up in 15 minutes. We'll close out hour number 1, this Tuesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here. As I mentioned earlier in the hour, I came basically from the airport. I dropped my stuff off at my house, but I was not at my house for more than 10 minutes today. Had a 5:25 flight out of Omaha this morning to St. Louis and then to here. So, I haven't really gotten my feet on the ground yet. I just came in here and started yapping about baseball. And we'll do a lot of football in the second hour. But Beck, I got to find a salad somewhere at home. There was
no salads available in Omaha?
They were available. They weren't purchased at any point.
Why not?
It was 13 days of bacon cheeseburgers, French dips, French fries, pizza, pastas, big salad, pastas in the press box, beers, steaks, potatoes, mac and cheese. It was.
What's the problem?
The problem is, I'm probably gained 10 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just pure indulgence the entire time. I need to have a little bit of maturity.
Yeah,
to be able to just chill out and drink a glass of water and have a salad. And I just never did. I just ate something hellaciously unhealthy for every meal for 2 weeks.
And I'm guessing you weren't running or doing
no,
of course
shot.
not.
Absolutely not.
No.
I was waking up, getting a story written, probably drank a Coke Zero, went down to the sports book at the Ameristar, which, I'm sure there's a salad on the menu. I didn't see it if they did, and got a bacon cheeseburger and fries. Ooh. And then, at night was drinking a beer. It's just complete indulgence, like an immature 5th grader.
For 2 weeks.
It just
sounds like college.
It was basically that.
Yeah.
It's just I had some things to do.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit ashamed of myself.
It's okay though. No, you're okay. Look, you can recover from this very easily. You get back into your exercising every day. Your runs. Do that. Maybe run a little bit further than you usually do. And try to just eat healthier for at least a week. And
I am proud to say that I didn't get in the hot tub in my room.
Okay.
Which it was 3 feet from my bed. I'm just not feeling like that was maybe the most sanitary. Maybe so.
Well,
maybe
you
they
just take a shower afterwards.
Yeah, the hot tub in the Midwestern hotel, I just wasn't really feeling. Everything else was phenomenal. I loved I had a comfortable bed, great internet. The shower was phenomenal. The people were unbelievable. The sports book was great. I did play blackjack last night.
Okay, and?
We're not going to talk about that.
All right. So
it was the first wager I'd pay, so it went very, very poorly.
All right.
But my choices from a dietary perspective were just offensive.
Yeah. Look.
Could you have done better than that?
Oh, well,
would you have done better than that?
I think I would have. I think I really do. I'm not certain of it, but I do think I would have done a little bit better. It's becoming clear, Hunt, that sometimes you just need a little bit of guidance at times. You can't. It's hard for you to by yourself to handle things like this.
Sometimes you just revert back to 4th grade behavior, and I just feel like from an eating perspective, I do not regret either of the steak dinners that I had, which were phenomenal.
You shouldn't, no.
But we could have mixed it up for lunch and not gone straight cheeseburger, pizza, French dip.
Yeah.
Press box
this
pasta.
Sounds like Myers would have loved this.
Yeah, well, I ate his diet. I had his diet for 2 weeks.
The diet of a 3-year-old.
Just less ketchup, but the same principle. Less ketchup, more beers than Myers. But that was basically what we got into there. So what a trip, and so many people that I saw up there that were so thrilled that that they were there for the first time, and so many that had been many, many times. And another deal, I talked about this yesterday, but every single Uber driver that you hop in, if you've got your colors on, they're mentioning it and talking about it, and they've had LSU fans year in and year out, and the bartenders, and you walk into a restaurant and it's just completely purple and gold if you're anywhere near the stadium. Very, very cool. And the folks at the Ameristar were disappointed Charlie and Jimmy were not there.
Yeah.
And, that's a first. They've been there for every one of these things for a bajillion years, and I've got a feeling they have not made their last trip. But I very much appreciate Gordy and Flynn and Matt and everybody for allowing me to do that. Haley from sales walked into my office in January, and she goes, Gordy wanted me to book you a flight to Omaha. And I said, in June? She's like, yeah. I said, yeah, you can do that. I'm a little bit disappointed that we got the 5:25 a.m. return flight in January.
In January, you had plenty of options.
There were probably some options there, and we'll revisit that. We'll workshop that in the future. But it did allow me to get back and do my show. So maybe that was the most efficient thing for business.
Yeah.
Just who cares about Hunt's sleep after his debaucherous 2 weeks of nothing but cheeseburgers. So that's it. Mr. Wallace says, Hunt, you did awesome. I'm not sure my primary care physician agrees with that, but hopefully the listeners thought things were good and the readers, LouisianaSports.net. In terms of clicks and views from the YouTube stuff and the website, everything was awesome. So appreciate y'all for following along the entire time up there in Omaha. Let's transition to a little bit of football. Big visit weekend over the weekend. What happened? Sonny Ship will tell us that, and we'll do some Saints at the bottom of the hour with Sharif Ishak. Come back after Sports Center. It's a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.